Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Report, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Stalia Strzemska. And our main story today continues to be the latest Russian provocation, a drone incursion into Polish airspace. We'll bring you the details of this breach, the official response from Warsaw, and what it could mean for regional security. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that the alliance, including Poland, has responded very effectively to the Russian drone incursion. He added that NATO is committed to defending its territory and that air defenses are constantly on alert.
Last night, numerous drones from Russia violated Polish airspace. Our air defenses were activated and successfully ensured the defense of NATO territory, as they are designed to do. Several allies were involved alongside Poland. This included Polish F-16s, Dutch F-35s, Italian AWACS, NATO multi-role tanker transport and German Patriots. I commend the pilots. The North Atlantic Council met this morning and discussed the situation in light of Poland's request for consultations under Article 4 of the Washington Treaty. Allies expressed solidarity with Poland and denounced Russia's reckless behavior.
To discuss the latest developments and the international response they've triggered, we're joined now by Katarzyna Pisarska from the Kazimierz Pulaski Foundation. Good afternoon, welcome, delighted to have you with us.
Good afternoon.
So let's start with Article 4. Poland has formally applied for it to be invoked. What else can Poland do at the moment?
So Article 4 is the article where NATO conducts consultations when one of the member states feels particularly endangered. Its safety, its security is particularly endangered. Of course, these are only consultations, but I think it's important to say that this is the first time since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine that this article has been invoked. What does that mean? It means that Poland understands that this has been no mistake, that this is a deliberate Russian attack on Poland. Russia is testing our ability to react, not only physically, not only militarily, but most importantly politically to such act. We have to remember that we already had a few intercepted drones over the last few months, which means that some kind of activities from the Russian side started to test our security and our air missile defense system. But yesterday there was a full-blown drone incursion into our airspace. So apart from Article 4, which is the beginning of the road, we're going to meet all other NATO member states, 31 of them, and talk about what we can do together to respond to this Russia's activity. I think we also need to speak to a number of our non-NATO partners, but also speak within the European Union. The European Union, I remind you, has also a similar to Article 5, a defense clause, which is called Article 42. This article has never been tested. It is there since the Treaty of Lisbon and the treaties. It is actually more precise than Article 5 of NATO. It talks about mutual assistance in a case of an attack. I think this would be a great opportunity to also get the European Union treaty system involved in a potential response, among many other things that we can do.
Right, so presenting a united front is important here. So how do you
Not
gauge...
even a united front, I'm sorry. It's not about the united front, it's about concrete activities. What we need to do, and I don't want these activities to be known public. I don't want public statements condemning. Of course, these are important, but much more important is what behind the closed doors will be decided regarding very concrete activities that Russia will read as a retaliation as a response to this.
So how do you gauge reactions thus far and what has been done already?
Yeah, well, nothing has been done since the morning, of course, because these coordinations haven't taken place. We need to truly create a list of things that would be possible as retaliation towards Russia. This, of course, includes sharpening. This is where the EU comes in. EU economic sanctions. The new packages are there. We heard today Ursula von der Leyen in her State of the Union speech in Brussels speaking about a 6 billion initiative that is going to create and help create an anti-drone system on the European eastern flank. But these are, of course, all long-term consequences. We should think about consequences that will hit Russia directly. These might be, for example, giving specific military equipment to Ukraine today, or helping Ukraine in targeting, for example, some of the drone factories in Russia. We know that Ukraine has these capabilities. It is already targeting refineries. It's already targeting the oil system. We should not shy away from helping the Ukraine actually targeting the places where these drones in Russia, because the majority of all right now of Shahid drones are produced in Russia. They are now a Russian product, no longer an Iranian one. They should be targeted as a legitimate target for Ukraine, naturally, as there's thousands of drones that every week incurs into Ukraine. But now we see they're also used to potentially attack a NATO member state.
And speaking of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy has called this an attack, right, and a deliberate action. So how do you view the Ukrainian response?
Well, Ukraine is responding every single day to the horrendous war crimes that are happening. Every single day we hear that people, civilians sleeping in their houses, children, elderly, are being killed by Russian missiles, by Russian drones. Ukraine is at war, and it is not Ukraine's responsibility to respond to Russia's incursion into a NATO state. Ukraine's responsibility is to respond to Russia's incursion into Ukraine that's happening every day, and that is exactly what the Ukrainians are doing. But they need help. They need help in air missile defense. We know that. They need more batteries. They need more support. But they also need much more long-range missiles. We have been campaigning, me personally, also for the release of Taurus missiles from Germany to Ukraine. That's a very important step forward. We've also spoken, this is on the sanction side, and we've heard also a very good idea today coming from the European Commission about confiscating Russia's state assets. I think that will only show the European resolve towards Russia. We have 260 billion Russian state assets frozen today in the European Union, and specifically Belgian and French banks. We've been talking about confiscating these assets, to use these assets to fund either reparations or, most importantly, the military effort of Ukraine. And today the Commission has given an idea how to legally use again these funds to help Ukraine, and that's going to show Russia the resolve that we're ready to confiscate their money, so that it's not the European taxpayers who are paying for Russia's atrocious war, that is actually Russia itself who pays the ultimate price for its aggression.
Katarzyna Pisarska, Kazimierz Pułaski Foundation, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much for having me.
There were 19 intrusions into Polish airspace overnight, with many of Russian drones entering from Belarus. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said in Parliament, adding that the shooting down of 3 drones was confirmed, with the 4th being likely. Let's bring in our defense correspondent Zuzanna Jurek with the latest. Zuzanna, can you sum up what do we know about these drones? What kind of drones were these?
Good afternoon, Sally. So far, as you mentioned, we know that at least 19 incursions have happened. These are most likely Russian Shahed drones, which are made in Iran. It has been so far confirmed that at least the wreckage of 7 has been found, including additionally 1 missile. The search for the remaining wreckages continues to be underway. As you also mentioned, the Polish Prime Minister Tusk has said in the parliament this morning that the situation is unprecedented, as this is the first time that drones originating from Russia have entered the Polish airspace through Belarus. This is what else he had to say on the subject matter this morning.
The first violation of our country's airspace was recorded at around 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday, and the last one was recorded at around 6:30 a.m. this morning, which gives you an idea of the scale of this operation. The operation ran through the night and involved 19 violations, all of which were precisely tracked. However, these are not the final figures, as our Chief of the General Staff only wants to provide the public with confirmed data. Notably, this marked the first time in this war that the drones did not fly in from Ukrainian territory as a result of errors, confusion or small-scale Russian provocations. For the first time, many of these drones flew in directly from Belarus.
But importantly, as you mentioned, though this is an unprecedented situation, the response has been in kind. The Polish President Karol Nawrocki has already announced that within the next 48 hours, consultations with the National Security Bureau will be held about the next steps, as well as initial investigation as to what has happened exactly. Additionally, most importantly, which has already been mentioned during the service today, Article 4 of the NATO Charter has been evoked. That means that consultations within the NATO alliance will be held, trying to delineate whether this provocation, this event, constitutes the assault on territorial integrity, security, as well as the security and safety of Poland as a NATO member state. It is important that the Article 4 has only ever been evoked a handful of times, 7 exactly. The most recent event being the full-scale event, the full-scale provocation, the full-scale Russian aggression against Ukraine in 2022. Additionally, although this event is unprecedented in its scale, it is crucial to note that this isn't the first time that Poland has been subjugated to such provocations from Russia. It was only on Sunday that a Russian originating drone has fallen some 300 meters from the Belarusian border. Additionally, the Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz has said just yesterday that this observed spike in provocations will mean that Poland will have to respond in kind, and that also means that any objects, any drones entering from the east into Poland's airspace will be shot down. More details are to follow, so for now it's back to you in the studio.
Zuzanna Jurek, thank you for bringing us up to speed. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrii Sybiha has reacted to the overnight violation of Polish airspace. He urged neighboring NATO countries to use their air defenses to intercept drones and missiles while they're still over Ukraine. Oscar reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said that the early morning Russian attack on Ukraine with multiple drones crossing into Polish airspace sets a dangerous precedent for Europe. On Wednesday morning, President Zelenskyy said that Russia had launched 415 drones and 42 missiles onto Ukrainian territory in the early hours of Wednesday morning. Explosions were reported in the central and western parts of Ukraine, including Vinnytsia, Lutsk, Ivano-Frankivsk, Lviv and Zhytomyr, as well as the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. One person was reportedly killed in a drone and missile attack on the Zhytomyr region. Now, President Zelenskyy has said that he is ready to work in partnership with European nations to deal with these aerial threats. Let's take a listen to his statement.
Ukraine is ready to provide Poland with all the necessary data available regarding this Russian strike. Ukraine is also ready to help Poland build an effective system of warning and protection against such Russian threats. It is clear that Russian aggression poses a danger to every independent nation in our region, and therefore only joint and coordinated action can guarantee reliable security.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrii Sybiha also published a statement on Wednesday calling for European nations to help Ukraine deal with aerial threats inside Ukrainian territory, something the Ukrainians have been asking for quite a long time. Let's take a listen to that part of the statement.
Russian drones flying into Poland during the massive attack on Ukraine show that Putin's sense of impunity keeps growing because he was not properly punished for his previous crimes. This situation shows that finally the decision needs to be taken to enable partner air defence capabilities in neighbouring countries to be used to intercept drones and missiles in the Ukrainian airspace, including those approaching NATO borders. Ukraine has suggested such a step for a long time. It needs to be taken for the sake of collective security. Furthermore, sanctions must be ramped up without delay. Putin will only get serious about peace negotiations when he faces serious transatlantic pressure. The Russian war machine must be stopped, and it can only be stopped by strength, not weakness.
So it is clear in the aftermath of this unprecedented event, Russian drones entering into Polish airspace, a NATO member being forced to shoot down these aerial threats in the sky. It's clear that the Ukrainians want further action, not just on sanctions, but they want European help in protecting their skies. It's Oz Kataji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Europe stands in full solidarity with Poland, said European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in her State of the European Union address on Wednesday. The support is to be manifested through a new €6 billion drone alliance with Ukraine and beefing up Europe's eastern flank. We are joined live by EU correspondent Angela Skujins from Strasbourg. Good afternoon, Angela. So how is the EU executive planning to support Warsaw?
Yes, so the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen used her State of the European Union address earlier this morning in Strasbourg to highlight how the EU plans on reacting to this news that came in earlier this morning that dozens of suspected Russian Shahed drones entered Polish airspace and subsequently shot down. Now, this support will be developed through that €6 billion anti-drone investment with Ukraine along the EU's eastern flank. She also mentioned the development of an Eastern Flank Watch. This will be surveillance technology deployed to make sure that any movement that occurs there does not go unseen. Let's take a listen to a snapshot of that European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen speech where she specifically mentioned Poland and this news that came in earlier this morning, which prompted the 700 or so MEPs to give a standing ovation in support of that Central European country.
And just today we have seen a reckless and unprecedented violation of Poland and Europe's airspace by more than 10 Russian Shahed drones. Europe stands in full solidarity with Poland.
Yes, but von der Leyen is not the only senior Brussels brass that has extended her support to Poland during this time. We heard the European Parliament President Roberta Metsola. She spoke to reporters before going into the chamber, the hemicycle, earlier this morning, stating that Poland has every right to defend itself. This was backed up by the European Council President Antonio Costa, who stated that last night's events are a stark reminder that the security for one is the security for all. And we've spoken to many MEPs here in the European Parliament in Strasbourg, who have clearly stated that this incursion into Polish airspace should not only be taken seriously just by Warsaw, but by countries in the north, south, east and west. It doesn't matter if you're in Estonia or if you're in Spain. They've reiterated that this threat should be taken seriously by all of the EU member states, particularly those that are NATO alliance members. But this is a developing news story. We will update you in the newsroom when and if more commentary comes through.
Angela Skujins reporting from Strasbourg. Thank you, much appreciated. Anti-Russian drones and drone debris have fallen in several locations in Poland after NATO aircraft shot down at least 3 of them in the overnight operation. Our correspondent Kazimierz Łysiak is currently on site and one of the villages where debris has been found. Kazimierz, so what is the situation there at the moment?
Good afternoon, Sally. We are about 50 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. We are standing on the estate of one of the landowners here, and in the land over there, in the distance, we will try to show you currently the Polish services, uniform services, are trying to lift this drone which fell right here on the land of one of the residents of this small village right here. They put it on its side so it looks like it's safe to be moved at this point. We don't know if it's going to be taken somewhere now or if they are just inspecting it. They have been working here since the morning, securing the site. We can't get any closer, but hopefully you can see that on camera. This is as far as we can get to the drone right now. Now, I've spoken to the landowner here and asked him how he feels about this entire situation, and he told me that, well, he feels as if war has come to his doorstep. He feels under threat. He says that this drone might have easily fallen on his house, might have easily harmed one of his family members. So for the people of Poland, especially those who have land where these drones have fell, this is really a traumatic experience, a grim reminder of the fact that the war is indeed happening just beyond Poland's borders, about 50 kilometers from here, and it can easily reach the Polish villages. There have been at least 7 drones found so far across the country. There are 12,000 policemen currently searching through the entire eastern part of Poland, and not only, also in the close to the center of Poland. There have also been some drones found there. So overall, a lot of policemen involved in the search. Like I said, about 7 of them have been found so far, and the search goes on. Back to you in the studio.
Kazimierz Rysiak reporting from the village of Wochin. Much appreciated. Thank you. Military experts and policy analysts told TVP World that Russia's overnight drone incursions were aimed at testing Poland and NATO's responses. They also suggested that Moscow was likely to continue applying pressure, but this might prompt greater unity from the US and EU over sanctions against Russia.
In these numbers of drones crossing the border, this has to have been deliberate. Or at a minimum, it has to have been, well, you know, if we do this, they'll fly into Poland, and then we'll just see how they react. I mean, there is a Russian, it goes back to the Soviet period, strategy that they have. They call it reflexive control. Okay, so they're always trying to predict how we'll react institutionally. And reflexive control says you will try to make your adversary unknowingly make decisions that are bad for them, and that's their game.
What Russia has done is it has managed to sort of kill the security doctrine of NATO and overall in the world by using these hybrid escalations. So a system has to be built, and when I say technical and political capabilities, that's just the systems. You know, there should be many units which can intercept Shaheds very quickly. The command chains should be such that the decisions could be made independently with the matter of seconds, not going all the way up to the capital or to the commanders.
There are many who would say that Russia is not ready militarily to test NATO resolve, but I think that Mr. Putin has made strategic miscalculations before. And I'm not saying that I think that anything is necessarily going to happen, but I do think that preparation and a state of complete readiness operationally and tactically is the name of the game. And there are encouraging signs right now that some senators in both, or some senators and congressmen in both parties in the United States have called out what happened recently, and even one Republican U.S. Representative Joe Wilson, who is a senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, on social media said that Russia was, quote unquote, attacking NATO ally Poland and called it a, quote unquote, act of war. And Representative Wilson also urged the U.S. president to respond with sanctions that will bankrupt the Russian war machine. And I think a positive sign is that the EU's top sanctions official was in Washington this week on Monday to discuss what would be the first coordinated measure between the EU and the United States against Russia since the Trump administration 2.0 took form.
I think this is the one of the incidents we will have during the Zapad exercises. So we cannot right now fully predict that we pass, as you mentioned, a kind of a test. Of course, this is the wave of different threats coming from the Russian activity below the threat of war. That's why we cannot see only one example. We need to place that in the larger scale of threats. For instance, we saw previously that there was one or two UAVs. Right now, we are watching a larger scale of use of unmanned aerial vehicles. That's why I'm very skeptical that this is the end, and we will see a kind of coming back to the normal maybe normal relation with border situation.
And with this, we conclude our news bulletin, but of course, we'll continue to bring you the latest updates throughout the day. Thank you for watching and have a good afternoon.